Welcome to Meta Orthodontic Suite. Today we're going to discuss how to deal with missing teeth with this simulation. So this is a patient that presented missing lower sixes on both sides as well as a lower five. So the patient presented wanting to fill these holes with an implant. Now the doctor viewed this case and wanted to review it orthodontically because she noticed an overjet issue. So before placing implants, she wanted to make sure that the orthodontics was in good position so that she didn't trap herself in the future. So we're going to go through this step by step, going through some of the issues that may arise when you have missing sixes like this, but you should be able to apply a lot of these same concepts to wherever you would have a missing tooth. So again, this first stage is to edit this scan. Well, all the extra data on here is fine, so we're going to move on. Again, there's a lot of wear on this tooth and it's missing teeth, and so some of these early steps are going to take a little extra work here. The AI cannot find the normal points, so I'm going to place the points on the cusp of the fours, and instead of the distal buccal cusp of the sixes, which are missing, I'm going to place them on the mesial buccal cusp of the sevens to find the occlusal plane. Now, the big issue here is, again, I'm not worried so much about the placement of these points. I want to look on this side and see, is this an accurate reflection of the occlusal plane? I do have the option of looking at the upper or removing the lower and comparing it to the upper as well. Now, the lower is always where we start from, so this is what's shown. If I want to adjust, again, right-clicking it allows me to rotate back and forth. Both left and right at the same time allows me to move it bodily. If I move it incorrectly, I can use this undo to go back to the original position. And we'll leave it at this position for this purpose. In the second stage, AI is going to try to auto-segment these teeth. Now, this scan has a lot of wear on the teeth, so it didn't do a great job up here, so we're going to quickly edit this again to solve this problem. So I am hitting all off and then double-clicking with my left click to use the wizard to identify the tooth. I'm going to use the right click to rotate to make sure I painted that tooth correctly. And when I'm happy with the paint of that tooth, I hit this blue button down here, that check mark, and that's now identified that tooth as the 1-4. The 1-5 over here is grayed out. So I'm going to push fine tooth, and then I'm going to again use my wizard to double click with my left click. It did a nice job there, so I'm good. If I'd like to use brushes, I do have the brushes down here for a positive or negative brush to either remove or add in identification of data. So you can use those tools as you choose. And then I hit the check mark, and now we're good there. So now, because we're missing these teeth down here, I need to make sure to indicate on the left-hand side, the 3 6s in here, so it comes up as grayed out on this side. Now, if I don't fill these teeth, the simulation is going to close those spaces from the front, which will cause an enormous retraction of these teeth. So I'm going to want to add in an implant or a restoration into these places. So I'm going to left click on that gray tooth and put a planned prosthesis there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of the 4-6 and the 4-5 place to make sure that I have a tooth filled into all those places to hold those spaces. Now, if I do a restoration on both sides, like I did on the 6 here, it's going to take a tooth from our library and insert that tooth into that space. If I only do a single one, like the 4-5 here, it's going to take that 3-5 from the other side and flip it and put it into this space. Okay, so now if I continue on, we'll be able to move forward with this case. Because I'm missing the lower 6, it had a hard time attaching this data. So I'm going to find a point on the anterior that I can see in both the Ceph and the model, and on the posterior on both the Ceph and the model. Once that's aligned how I like, I hit next. I choose the arch form. Make sure the arch form is positioned correctly. And now I move on. Now, without the lower 6s, the software can't find the bite classification on the 6. So it's going to search for one on the cuspid. You know, you can trust this number, you can move these around. You know, in this case, it's not really so relevant, so we'll just kind of skip over this. Again, I can just treat this as a class 1 case and override these numbers. And now we're just going to work on the lower here. So I'm going to hit next here, and now it's going to create this simulation. So let's look what the software brought up for us. So if I use this animation tool, I can very quickly see what the software did. So on the left-hand side, you can see the start models. On the left and the right-hand side, you can see again, a non-extraction arch form to maintain. And because we put restorations in those places, you're going to see it's going to move those teeth and then add those restorations in. If I like to look at only the lower, again, I'm right-clicking to rotate. We're clicking left and right to move it bodily. Again, I can use this animation tool to really visualize what this would look like if I'm trying to move those teeth forward and place those restorations in. This doctor was a little bit more aware and looked at the overjet issue, and so wanted to evaluate the orthodontics prior to placing those implants. So when we look at this case from an orthodontic perspective, if I place the implants in the obvious places in the 6 and the 5, I'm going to have a very hard time correcting that overjet problem. So if I place those implants and the patient came back wanting to fix his overjet, you've really limited your treatment options because you've placed those implants that can't be moved. So this doctor started looking for other options to work with. So with this tool, she was able to go back to the tooth identification stage, and she looked at this 4-4 and said, that might actually be a 4-5 that collapsed in that 4-4 space. So I can left click on the 4-4 and identify this tooth as the 4-5. Now what that's going to do is it's going to move that tooth back, and now I have the gray point over the 4-4, and let's change the place we place that implant into the 4-4 space. Then I can quickly go back to the simulation and try that out. So one of the beautiful parts about this tool is I can try a lot of different treatment options very quickly to have a very high level discussion with the patient and make better treatment decisions. So again, look at the animation will help us really visualize this treatment. Now when I go from the start to the finish, if I'm worried about that overjet problem, and if the patient's willing to do orthodontics, by using the anchorage and moving that 4-4 back to the 4-5 space, I'm able to close those spaces on the anteriors, solve some of that overjet issue, and place the implant in actually a much nicer position. So I can scroll back just a little bit. You can look at, by moving that tooth back, this is a much better place to put that implant. So now with this tool, we were able to make a treatment decision of placing an implant in the 6 on both sides, as well as an implant in this 4-4 space. But did the orthodontics first to set this up, and that really allowed us to be successful in this case in the future. This tool was used to explain this to the patient. Patient really liked this idea and really was happy with the result, but all of a sudden mentioned, well, my front teeth still have a lot of wear on them. What else can you do? So the doctor went back and clicked over here and said, well, what if we put veneers 2-2? And so you can very quickly, again, left clicking each of these teeth that have been identified already, gives me the planned prosthesis option right there. And very quickly I was able to identify those upper and lower 2-2 veneers. And I click back over to the simulation. In a matter of seconds, it was able to simulate out what this would look like if I put veneers on the upper and lower, as well as the orthodontics plus the implants. And again, this is what the patient decided. And so by using this tool and being able to show them and really explore and educate the patient on what they want, we're able to take this case and make a much better treatment decision, sell the patient on a very good long-term treatment objective, and really, come out with a better outcome. You could even in this case with all the other wear, start looking at every single tooth, and I could actually go through and put a planned restoration on every tooth if I want to do a full mouth reconstruction. So the tool makes it so your options are endless. You can explore these options extremely fast and really make better restorative decisions.